Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Amy Winner. Amy, excited to have you on the show.
Great to be here. Thanks so much for the invite.
Yes, super excited to have you on and talk about all the awesome things that you're doing. But of course, before we do that, I want to read a little bit more about Amy so you can hear about some of those awesome things. And Amy has spent the last 25 years helping brands turn uncertainty into opportunity. Whether recession, competitive pressures, market changes, or COVID-19, Amy has worked alongside both B2B and B2C leadership in a variety of industries to build pragmatic and resilient go-to-market strategies while navigating change. She's built multiple in-house marketing teams at early stage tech startups and led them through successful acquisition, and now helps high growth B2B SaaS companies grow as the CEO of Wheels Up Collective, a boutique marketing agency. Her absolute favorite thing to do is to hop on a call and brainstorm with new entrepreneurs and CEOs about how to identify and leverage opportunities that can help their companies grow. And before we were set to do this recording, I was reading a little bit more about Amy. Amy is a former D1 athlete, national champion as a collegiate rower, and also is a competitive equestrian as well too. And I was listening to one of her interviews, and I think she said her first job was as a horse groomer business at the age of 12. And we had a great conversation when we first connected. So I appreciate her journey and her willingness to share her journey as well too. So excited to have you on the show, Amy. Are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
Yeah, I really hope I don't become known as the 12-year-old horse groomer. Like I need to redeem myself. Can't be my claim to fame.
Hey, there you go. It's such a cool story, but I feel like you've done a lot more since then as well too. So we'll just add that as an anecdote in addition to everything else you've been doing,
Deal.
right? That works. All right. Well, let's rewind the clock a little bit. Hear a little bit more on how you got started. What I call your CEO story.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I've been in marketing for 25 years and mostly in small companies or startups that were really trying to figure out how to get our footing quickly, whether it was like a new product rollout, whether it was an acquisition, whether it was, a new competitor trying to break into a new use case, new personas. That's sort of like my jam is figuring out how to make it work when you don't know how it's going to work. And took a slight detour and ended up at a huge, ginormous corporation. And just like, it was a terrible fit. Like it was slow moving. It was political. It just was, and this was in 2018 and 2019. And so in December of 2019, I quit and was going to just take some time off and figure out what I wanted to do. And then COVID hit, and I was talking to one of my good friends, and she had kind of gone through a very similar situation. And we were both getting hit up. We forget in the early days of COVID, like there was this scramble to digital. There was this scramble to like get online and be able to reach an audience online and talk to an audience online. And so both of us were getting hit up by past colleagues, like, can you help us? Can you work on this? Do you want a side hustle? And so I don't know, we just started talking, and the next thing you know, we're starting a digital agency. Everybody else is baking sourdough bread, and we're like, let's start a marketing company. Like, not really thinking it was going to be a thing long term, but 4 years later, here we are, and growing faster than ever. And so it's been I always joke when we meet with our early entrepreneur owners and CEOs, like, no one starts a company because they want to like send marketing materials or write emails. Nobody starts a company because they want to learn how to do payroll. So I mean, it's definitely been a lot of that learning for me to figure out, like, okay, I know the marketing part of it, but I was kind of bored with that and was looking for a new challenge. And so the entrepreneurship of, running a company and hiring people and figuring out how to grow has been a fun sort of second career. So it's been fun. It's been really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, especially because you hear so many times, like you mentioned, the sourdough bread entrepreneurs or people that were starting things. There's so many phenomenal things that, of course, during a time that's not as sunshine and rainbows for a lot of people, but there's usually some opportunity that can come about when there's that level of disruption, as we all had experienced. And I really enjoy hearing like the different innovations, the ideas, how those ideas sometimes come about like during times like that.
Yeah, absolutely. definitely, you look back and I never thought life would look like it does right now, but I'm kind of happy that it happened the way it did. So
Yeah, absolutely. So you touched on it a little bit, and I imagine you probably have a lot of these conversations on a daily basis where sometimes people are really great at the things that they do. Those things might be sourdough bread, or it might be running a store, a storefront, whatever it might be, or a combination of those things. But usually they're not thinking about the marketing piece or what that looks like, or all those things. So I imagine that's where you have a lot of those conversations and are able to kind of I guess build that bridge so that whoever's doing those great things, those great products and services, and those teams are able to kind of get that out to the world so that they can get those clients and customers.
yeah, and I think like marketing has kind of a bad rap from 20 or 30 years ago where it was sort of seen as like a black box where you just kind of throw money at it and who knows if it's working or not. And like it's not like that anymore. Like you can track the efficacy of your marketing spend. And I think there's an opportunity to be really strategic about marketing and use it as a learning tool. Like we're always kind of trying to figure out like how can we run, sure, we're gonna run this marketing campaign, but like what are the learnings, what are the tests we can run through it, and we kind of always start with hypotheses about what we think is is the way it's going to go, or we think is what the direction the market's going in, and then we really try and use every marketing tactic as a way to test that and to learn from it. And I think that a lot of times, especially in early days or small business days where you have so much on your plate, like you just don't even have the brain space to think about marketing that way. It's kind of like, oh, I just need to get it done. And so I think that's a little bit of a twofer, that you can get out of that if you take a minute to think about it like really intentionally.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you talked about that race to digital, where I think people started to sometimes, I don't want to say they may not have been doing digital at all before, but they probably became a lot more aware about its power. But I feel like there's not enough, and I don't know if you've seen this when you've had those conversations, not enough awareness about like what that power is. Like you mentioned, being able to kind of
Yeah.
track and understand, like, okay, this didn't work, so let's pivot here. Sounds like you have been able to kind of course, do that, but also have those conversations with clients too.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's budget is so lean, so you really have to be able to show that what you're doing is worth it. And so, we are always pushing pretty early on for like we're going to get an ROI off of this. Like it might not be perfect, and we might have to make some assumptions along the way, but I think that's a good culture to instill in a CEO that you're working with about, hold your marketing team's feet to the fire a little bit, hold them accountable. I don't want to spend money on things that don't work either, right? So it just as much as the business owner doesn't want to light money on fire on black box marketing, tactics. Like we don't want to do it either. So let's figure out how we can track it and how we can show that it's making the impact that you want it to.
Yeah, and it's so huge because I think it gives a lot more, I guess, empowerment, to the CEO or entrepreneur or business owner that is able to kind of understand, okay, this is working, this not working. But I love how you said, because I don't think a lot of times people come out and say that they want to have their feet held to the fire, so to speak, or even show people how to do that or speak to that. And I think by you having those conversations and bringing that to light, again, it just, I guess gives a lot more opportunity and power, I think, for the leaders of these organizations.
Absolutely. I mean, my goal is always at every organization that we work with, like I want the CFO to want to take a call with me. I want
Mm.
the CFO to be excited to talk to me. And I can say that I've never had a CFO turn me down on a budget request when I could go to him or her with a solid case, and I think that, every other department, when you're asking for headcount or you're asking for, additional resources one way or the other, like you have to make a case for yourself. And I think marketing has skated through without that for a long time. And I'm all for, bringing some accountability, making sure that, you hold marketing to the same standard as any other part of your organization to make sure it's a solid investment, because that's what it is. It's an investment in your business.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why I love that perspective and how you're able to kind of, of course, have those conversations because it's so powerful. So I wanted to drill down a little bit more. Could you take us through like how you're working with your clients, how you're making that impact,
Yeah.
and be able to make sure that investment goes well? Could you take us through like what those products and services look like?
Yeah, absolutely. We are a full stack boutique marketing agency. We're tuned especially for B2B SaaS companies. And that's only because those sales cycles are fairly consistent. Once you figure them out, they're fairly consistent and formulaic. And so we're pretty good at building that formula and ramping it quickly. And we just have a lot of experience working with those kinds of sales organizations. So that's the little like niche in the world that we've carved out and kind of stuck our flag in that piece of land. I spent 15 years in startups in Seattle, and so kind of know that space and tend to like the pace and the accountability that it brings. So we can do everything from building a website to running demand gen campaigns to PR to graphic design and every single we don't have like a standard engagement because everyone's different. Every single company that we work with, and by nature of being, early stage or dealing with some sort of change, they're all different what they need. And so we end up having a conversation. The first question I love to ask CEOs is like, what keeps you up at night?
Mm-hmm.
Like what is, keeping you wide awake worrying about, and then how can we use marketing to help fix that? Because again, back to what I said before, like marketing used to be in this little bubble, and now, we can help every single department in the organization some way or another. And so really thinking about growth holistically and figuring out what programs, whether they're customer facing or internal facing, or prospect facing or ecosystem facing, what kind of programs can we run to help drive that growth? They're pretty fun conversations.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it, and I love how you use that word holistically because that's actually exactly what I was thinking. Because I think so many times, and I don't know if you've seen this, sounds like you also have your organization exactly like that as well too. But we can sometimes be so siloed within our organizations that we don't realize how interconnected they are and how one thing can affect the other. So
Absolutely.
when you ask that question, which is like I guess it's a humanistic question, really, because you're getting to the human part. What's actually worrying you? What's bothering you? What's making that happen? And see how you can help to support that with the marketing efforts. I feel like it starts to bring a lot of those things together and ends up being the glue to organizations.
Yeah. And also, like, everybody's busy, right? Like, everybody has too much on their plate. And
Mhm.
you have to figure out how you can help other people in the organization. You have to figure out, like, because everybody, when you come at them with a request, they're like, well, great, what's in it for me? I don't have time to do this.
Right.
I have 85 other things. And so, my favorite, like, light bulb moment when this hit me as a marketer a million years ago, I ran a user conference for a software company. And we took a year to plan it. The marketing team worked for a year on this user conference, and it included every single organization, every part of the organization. Sales was selling their, product was rolling out new. They had a big unveiling there. The UX team needed to use it for testing. HR was bringing prospective employees. They're like everybody. But nobody was thinking about it until like the week before. And so
Mm.
I had to figure out a year in advance, like what's in it for each of these different organizations. And I actually worked with the CFO to create KPIs within every single one of those teams within the company that rolled back to this user conference so that like they had to think about it all year long. And, then all of a sudden, everybody's excited about the user conference. Everybody's excited about planning. Everybody's excited about paying attention when I need help, 6 months before it happens, even though everybody's super busy. And I think you really like, I think you have to be effective. You have to walk into every conversation thinking like, how am I going to help the person in this conversation? Like, how can I drill into what they are going to get out of this conversation, even though I'm asking them for something? How can you phrase it in a way that it gets to what they're looking to achieve, or how can I help them, in the things that I'm working on? I think that's what makes you really effective in your organization, no matter how senior you are, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so funny because when I was in networking group, I remember I was going to training, and one of the things that one of the founders would say, it says everybody's tuned into the same station. He said WIIFM, what's in it for me?
Yes,
When you start to tap into
totally.
that, I think that's so powerful. And to me, I think it also gets into the heart of even marketing at its whole, where you're trying to really understand like how can you make this person's life better? How can your product, your service,
Absolutely.
whatever it is, help improve this person's life or this individual's or this organization's life in some way? So I think doing that, of course, for potential clients and customers, but also internally within a team so that you can have the cohesive, holistic strategy and execution of those strategies is such a huge thing.
Yep. Yep. Couldn't agree more.
Do you feel like that's part of what I would like to call your secret sauce? It could be for the organization, yourself, or a combination of both. But do you feel like your ability to not just see that, but also execute that and step into those shoes sets you apart and makes you unique?
I think the people, this is such a cliche answer, but like the people on our team is like that's our secret sauce. And I think maybe part of that is everybody thinks about it that way. You
Hmm.
know, I think you're right. That is kind of our one of our common tenants that that we operate under. But I think a lot of times companies are in such a time crunch to hire, like you need extra help so badly. And so you just end up hiring anybody, like, and I think that that's such a short-sighted um, answer. I think that like hiring is the most important thing you do in an organization. Whether you're a service organization, whether you're a software company, whether no matter what kind of company you are, the people that work for you, it's so important. And I just challenge business owners to like hold the bar really high, because it ends up taking so much more time to handhold somebody who's maybe not ready for the role, or manage somebody who's in trouble, or replace them down the road when you hired the wrong person. And even though it gets so painful when you really need to fill that head count, I think usually it's worth holding out for and really finding like the right fit culturally and still skill set and personality. And it's really hard. It's hard to hire people. It's really hard to hire good people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you speaking directly to that because I think so many times, like you said, sometimes you have a pressing need and you want to hire yesterday, let alone today
Yep,
or tomorrow. You want to have
totally.
already done it and have that person in place and already like alleviating some of the stress or creating more opportunities, whatever that might be and what that looks like. But I think by I guess what they say, hiring slow, fire fast. I don't know if that's the same kind of DNA, but still starting to respect the fact that you want to find and hold even yourself accountable for bringing the right people in place is so huge because it affects not only the organization, the people within the organization, but also your potential clients and customers as well too.
Yeah. And I think you need to leave space for candidates to really vet you,
Mhm.
because so much of it is, if it's got to be a good fit for everybody. And I know like when I do a lot of interviewing, a lot of our clients have me interview when they're hiring people just as an outside, set of eyes and ears. And, I don't go into those interviews with any questions prepared. I always say like, okay, what do you want to know? I'll tell you anything you want to know about this organization. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to, what do you want to know? And it's so telling to hear what those questions are. When people are like, oh, do you like it? You're like, oh, come on, like do better, be more curious than that, So I think that making sure that they're excited about the fit is just as important as you making sure that they're a good fit for you.
Yeah, and I can definitely see how that goes into the culture, that you kind of talked about and how, everything's so collective and holistic because when you have that, I guess, interaction, I won't even call it, of course, it's an interview, but it probably doesn't feel like an interview as much as a conversation. And you get to find as much as
Absolutely.
you're trying to be the best fit, that organization is the best fit as well, too. So when you step in on day one, virtually or literally, you feel like you can probably, I imagine, hit the ground running.
Yep. Yep. Totally.
Awesome, awesome,
Totally.
awesome. I love that. So I want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or even a habit that you have. But what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
Yeah. So this one, I was thinking a lot about this because you always ask this question on your
Mm,
podcast. But like my hack is like a to-do list hack.
mm,
And, especially as, I did not start a marketing agency because I wanted to learn how to do payroll, or I wanted to learn QuickBooks, or I did. And I think that you need to look at your to-do list, which is always way too long, right? And I put everything into like four different categories. One is like something that only I can do. Like
Mm,
there's no one else on the team that I can outsource it to. The second one is like, something that I would have to learn to be able to do. So like
mm,
QuickBooks in that case. One of them is something that I can delegate
mm,
existing on the team. And the fourth one is like something that I actually like to do. And so
mm.
I think that, especially as I don't, maybe this is unique to me. I don't know. I'm like a control freak. I'm like a type A control freak, and my co-founder and I started this company together, and we're going to do everything. And you can't, and you need to be able to trust people. And this kind of goes back to where I was saying you got to hire really good people, and then you got to delegate to them. You have to be a little scared and give them more than you think maybe they can handle, and give them a chance to grow and learn and step up a little bit. But also, like, I think I need to push myself constantly. I constantly have this inner dialogue with myself with like, is this worth my time to do this? What's the opportunity cost of me having to learn to use this new software because it's for HR, or it's for, or there's a million things that I could be spending my time on. And is this really the most important thing? Because I'll tell you, my to-do list is always like 100 miles long. But I think too, you have to make sure that there are things that you just like to do that probably you could delegate, but they're like little mental breaks, or they're easy to, who doesn't love checking something off a to-do list, right? Like, sometimes, well, maybe it's just me, but I pad the to-do list with like things that I like to do that are easy. And, you feel some sort of accomplishment that you got that one little thing crossed off. So I think being like super critical about your to-do list, and being like pretty honest with yourself about what you're good at and what you're not good at. And, not just getting overwhelmed by a really long to-do list is something that you probably have to figure out pretty early on if you're going to be successful in running a business.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And no, it's definitely not just you. I love checking off things on the to-do list. And I think even I feel like it starts to create this momentum as well. So even if there's small things on
Totally.
the to-do list that you check
Yeah.
off. And then too, I think you can look
Yep.
back. Sometimes when you're like, I didn't get anything done today, you can look quote unquote small, big, in the middle,
Yep.
whatever. You got
Love
those
it.
things done and you can always look back at that and run with it.
Yep.
I love the fact too that you break those things down, because I think a lot of times when we think of to-do lists, we just think of a running list of things that we have to do and have to get done. We sometimes don't think about the prioritization of those. But I love the kind of I'm seeing them as boxes, the different
Yep.
boxes of
It
where
is. It's
those.
4 boxes.
Yeah, I love
Yep.
that. Just the visual of it,
Mm-hmm.
because I think we start to look at tasks in different ways now, and we don't start to look at it as everything that I have to do. It could be, oh, this could be delegated. Oh, this really makes my heart sing, so I want to do as much of this as possible. Or hey,
Mm-hmm.
this is something maybe a more long-term project that I can start to learn. Or hey, this is something that I'm just championing now. So I think when you start to look at that, I feel like it's a lot more empowering, but also like that reminder that you don't have to do everything all by yourself, which is, I think, sometimes one of the most freeing things.
Spot on. Absolutely. I love that.
Absolutely. So I wanted to ask you now my favorite question, one of my favorite questions, which is the definition. Well, actually, it's the CEO Nugget, which if you were to hop into a time machine, what might you tell your younger business self, or potentially you might tell your favorite client?
Um, well, if I was going to tell myself, we work in tech. I am knee deep in tech, and I wish I had learned the tech more younger in my career. Like, I wish I had prioritized learning the subject matter a little bit better. Like, I can hang with a director of product. But I think I would be a better marketer if I really, and I think this applies to any industry, any leader, really understanding what it is you're selling, or the service that you're providing, and really getting as close to the customer as possible and understanding what makes them tick. Because I think that not only does it help you articulate it better and find better solutions, but it can only lead to empathy, right? Like, it can only, and I think, the more empathetic we can be in general in life, like, the better the world is. So
Yeah.
see, I'm creating world peace here with,
There we go. There we
CEO
go.
nuggets. Just be empathetic, people.
Exactly, exactly. That's a CEO mountain for sure. Because once you get that world peace. Let me ask you this: is there ever like a line where you feel like it's too much to know, or do you feel like it just helps out in terms of you building that empathy? So as much as you can learn about a service and industry, or even sometimes the I guess the the tech kind of softwares and things that we use, do you think learning about those things, there's never really a limit to us learning?
Um, well, I think it's easy to go down a rabbit hole,
Yeah.
right? For sure. To your point, I think that's what you were getting at. Like,
Yeah.
I think you can get wrapped up in like spending too much time on that. Um, but I think, I wish I could hang better talking to like a CTO and really
Mhm.
understand. And I mean, tech's hard because it's constantly changing and turning
Right.
over. But I think the closer you can get to the customer, I don't know that you can ever have too many conversations with customers, and that can be like secondhand, right? That can be listening to a sales conversation, or eavesdropping in with one of your like account managers or support.
Mhm.
Like I love to sit on the phone with in sales calls and hear how those go, because I think the more you can hear it through the voice of the customer, and the more you can hear the day to day of how it's getting used, that only helps you be better at your job.
Yeah, I think there's so much I learned, and you hear as far as quotes of like why CEOs especially shouldn't be in the quote unquote ivory tower and just saying, oh, you do X, Y,
Mm,
and Z and A, B, and C, but actually having those conversations because for one, it keeps your pulse on what's happening, but two,
yep.
I think you start
Yeah.
to really get to be empathetic in obviously your conversations, but I think also too like how you're talking with your clients and customers, but also the evolution of our products and services as well too.
Yep. Absolutely.
Perfect. So, what would you now consider to be your answer to my absolute favorite question, the definition of what it means to be a CEO? And our goal is to have different quote unquote CEOs on this show. So, Amy, what does being a CEO mean to you?
Yeah. And I'm going to steal this from another CEO that I used to work for, but he said
Go
it.
for it.
And I absolutely like, this is my life goal is I want to create an environment where the people who work with us can do the best work of their life, the best
Mm,
work of their career. I want to empower them and inspire them and like bust roadblocks out of the way so
mhm.
they come to work and they can do the best work they possibly can. And this kind of goes back to like, you got to hire good people, right? You got to hire good people who want to do good work most days, the vast majority of days. But I find when I can think about empowering the team, then the rest kind of falls into place. Like if you hire good people and you empower them and you set them up with growth opportunities, and give them work that they want to do, that they're good at doing, that gives them advancement opportunities, like the customers are going to be happy. Like that's the easy part, making the customers happy once you do the rest of that. So
Nice.
that's what I challenge myself to do every day. Some
Yeah.
days it happens, some days less, but that's my
Yeah.
North Star.
I love that. And I feel like that's another world peace answer for sure. Because I just see kind of like the dominoes falling from that. Because I think whenever you have that opportunity to be your best self and do your best work, I feel like that fills up an individual. I feel like we all want purpose. We all want to feel valued.
Yeah,
And when we're able to have that
absolutely.
happen, that helps out obviously the work that we do, but I think it helps us out when we go home with our families, our wife, kids, whatever, in our community. Just so many things start to happen. So I feel like that is that world peace answer because people are so valued by what they do that they get to
Hmm.
see that in so many different aspects of their life.
Yeah. This is like a little bit of a soapbox
Hmm.
issue for me, but
Hmm.
like managers need to manage. People tend to like, I want to manage people because that's the next rung on the ladder. And I think
Right.
that it's okay to not be a people manager, and it's okay to go the individual contributor route and be the best individual contributor possible. But if you're going to be a manager, like your job is to manage people and develop them and teach them. And like you forget, like, not to be melodramatic, but we've all had a bad boss, right? And like you see how much it affects your mental health. You see how
Mm,
much it affects the time you spend on the weekends with your family, and you see how much, a bad boss can stifle your career development. It can mean that you can't afford your mortgage. It can mean that you got to find another job. Like, you know, again, not to make myself, as a manager, make myself feel that important, but like you really, like, we forget how much impact you have on somebody's life when you manage them and when you're their they're your direct reports. And so I just want to challenge people to really remember, when you're a manager, like, you have a lot of responsibility to take care of the people who work for you and to make sure that it's about them. It's not about you anymore. It's about them.
Yeah, I appreciate you so much in that charge because I think that there's not enough conversations around that. I have a book that's on the shelf that I'm looking at right now called "It's the Manager," and it talks a lot around.
Mm,
I think there's a Gallup test where it talks a lot around how the evolution of management is a lot more coaching, of learning from people, listening, all those things. But I think, and I don't know if you feel like this way, but maybe because of the way that the corporate structure has been that, like you said, the next rung is to be a manager. By being a
yep,
manager, it's not the goal to kind of help out people. It's the goal to become a manager just
totally.
because of the title or whatever it might be, pay raise, whatever that looks like. But when you start to understand or maybe even build within a culture that we want to help you to be your best self in whatever that might be, then it starts to create like different goals, different aspirations. But I think also a lot more fulfillment in the organization and the people in it.
Yeah, and I think like you get the best out of people. We have like Wheels Up has, we have procured the best marketing specialists like in each specific area. Like they don't want to be managers. They want to do
Mhm.
really good work at a very senior level. And um, I think it's okay to have a conversation with somebody about your career trajectory. And I hope more companies make the individual contributor path a more senior one. Like I remember a long time ago, I had a review with a young woman on my team. I think she
Mhm.
was maybe 26, and I said, like, well, what do you want to do? Like, what are your career aspirations? She's like, I just want to be a manager. And I was like, okay, well, what about being a manager do you want to do? And she's like, well, you get stock options then, and you can go on the trip, and you can. And I'm like, like that's not a good reason to be a manager, honey. Like let's figure out how to, you know, redefine what a manager is, and get you a trip, with your husband instead. Like go on,
Right.
like make enough money so you can go on vacation, not with work people. So I don't know. I think you're right. It's corporate America now, but I wish it wasn't. I wish there were more organizations that didn't prioritize that.
Yeah, but I think the beautiful thing about all that you do with your organization is you start to kind of redefine that, just like as we're redefining what it means to be a quote unquote CEO. I think so many times we don't realize that there's another option, definition, or way that you can go through business, life, or anything
A
like
hundred
that.
percent.
By doing
Yep.
that and creating a new narrative, a new possibility, you start to have people realize that, hey, I always say if you run your own race, you can't lose. You start to realize that you can run your race and you can win because you're able to be who you are and lean into your talents. And I think that's one of the most powerful things for organizations, but
Mhm.
also for the people within them.
Love it. Love that.
Absolutely. Well, truly appreciate that definition. Of course, I appreciate your time even more. So, what I wanted to do now is pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional that you can let our readers and listeners know. And of course, how best they can get a hold of you, find about all the awesome things you and your team are working on.
Yeah, so you said it in the bio, but like honestly, my favorite thing to do is talk to, you know, young entrepreneurs early in there. And I try to do one a week. I try to take one call a week from somebody. It's not a sales call. I'm not trying to sell you anything. It's just like if you want to pick my brain. So I encourage anybody out there who wants to have, a fresh set of eyes or fresh set of ears, I guess, to talk through things like hit me up, send me an email. Let's get something on the calendar. I think there's a scheduling link on our website, but I love to have those conversations. But you can find us online at wheelsupcollective.com. We're on all the social media channels as well. And we would love to help you grow.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Amy. Of course, to make it even easier, we'll have the links and information in the show notes as well too, so somebody can take you up on that offer and opportunity. But truly appreciate you for your time. Obviously, appreciate you for the work that you do as well too. I think we got to definitely. I don't know if we solved world peace, but we're closer than we were before. So I absolutely appreciate you for making that possible and arming us with the ability to do that as well too. And I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.
Thanks, you too.